Hey, my name is Leah MARVILLE. On paper, I've achieved many things that one would equate to success and even happiness. But I know all too well that we don't experience the peaks of our journeys without traveling through the valleys. Along my own journey, I have been inspired time and again by the way others traverse their own. Life for sure will give you lemons, and I believe our lemons turn out to be our greatest lessons and the guide to our purpose here on this earth. We each have a story that brings its own unique message into the world. This is the true value of the individual, the ability to view the world through a lens that has never belonged to anyone else. The goal here is to share the stories of incredible people in an attempt to inspire us all to tap into the vast potential we each possess. It is my hope that these stories will always remind us that it is indeed possible to create something beautiful and sweet from the seed of that which may seem impossibly sour. Because that is life, and this is Life and Lemonade.
Do it.
Hi guys, and welcome to Life and Lemonade TV. And this season, the message is everyone has a story. More importantly, we believe that everybody's story forms a part of history. So we want to take this season to highlight more stories, wider stories that can, of course, also be a reminder of possibility, of all the things that you can achieve in life if you just put your mind to it.
Go ahead, girl.
Kicking off our season 2, of course, we have can I say the best guest? I can't say the best guest. Well, just for this episode.
No one else will. I won't take offense for anyone else if you say that.
Right. We're starting with an amazing guest, the general manager of the Dream Hollywood Hotel. And that is where we are. And what's exciting about it is not only is we're sitting with the GM, but also Dream is now our official location partner. Thank you so much for seeing the vision, of course. And you know, this is all about dreams. We're in Dream, sitting with a dream. We are sitting here again with Vaughn Davis, who is described as a modern day savant. He is known to be a leader in his field, international recognition, known for just revolutionizing the guest experience. I mean, and a long list of things. What I think is really inspiring about Vaughn, it goes beyond his title. It's the fact that he, to me, defies all stereotypes. So Vaughn was born in Guyana. Right?
GT massive.
Raised in New York, became very well recognized, and he'll tell us about this in his career in the hotel industry. And he is, as GM in one of the top hotels in one of the biggest cities in the world. He holds this high position, but as a family man with 4 kids and a Monday to Friday stint, and on the weekend he's coaching football and he's doing a bunch of other things. And I think it's great to really sit and dissect that. What is that like for you?
That's such a great question. And for me, it's actually personal. Coming to this country from Guyana, I encountered a tremendous amount of stereotypes from the moment I arrived. I had kids that said, oh, you're too certain ethnic race, and you act to this, and you act to that. And why do you speak that way? Why do you answer all the questions in class? Why are you in the front of the line? Why do you button your shirt to the top of your neck? Why do you wear your pants on your waist? I don't know, man. My mom taught me that. It's okay to do that. So for me, I take it personally because I assimilated to that culture for, I'd say, 8 years of my life, in which I fully immersed myself in it and wanted to be accepted. I was skipped 2 grades and asked to be put back just because I wanted to be with my friends, quote unquote. They only allowed me to go back 1 grade, which was okay. But it was because I wanted to be accepted.
Right.
And it wasn't until I was around 18 years old that I learned that if you focus on what other people think about you and you become captive to their thoughts, you become enslaved by that person. And I said, never again. I will never let that happen. So I started to break down every stereotype and just redefine what I understood my ethnic group or my culture to be from a tremendous amount of research, just drawing from pre-transatlantic slave history, which I think is important for everyone to understand. Your history doesn't start, 500, 600 years ago. Thousands, billions of years from an old Earth perspective on this planet, thousands of years from a young Earth perspective. perspective. And if you look at that history, you understand where you truly come from, you can then begin to assimilate to the true culture that I subscribe to. So for me, it's understanding that, and then going back and getting full context from, even Mansa Musa, Mali Empire, Ethiopian Empire, Egypt, all the way back to Israel, pre-split, pre-Judah, just understanding what the true context of our history was.
And so that kind of formed a foundation for who you are today. Because you right now, I'm fast forwarding to where you are now because that's how we're being introduced to you, and then I want to go back. But you just described, it's almost like going back and forth in time because it all adds up to be who you are, right? That foundation enhances who you are today, which appears to be a balanced family man in the midst of what you call like the industry. So tell me about the journey of getting to that. Explain to me your decision, your intentionality about being this person now.
Yeah, it's all statistics, right? So I took a look at all the statistics for our ethnic group, and I didn't want to be a part of any of those stats because they're all negative, unfortunately. So I wanted to change the narrative and also encourage other African Americans across the world to understand that they don't have to be a part of those statistics. They can kind of redefine the stats in a sense by deleting some of that old erroneous programming and re-uploading new programming based on pre-colonial error from our people and our ethnic groups to then form the true culture, which is what you really are, and then go and build from there. So that's actually what it was. I think it was, I was 21 years old, and I was sitting in the cafeteria at Hofstra. I went to Hofstra University. And I was sitting in the cafeteria. I was known as the football player, fun party guy, which was something that I accepted. I didn't think that was truly who I was at any point in my life, but it was what I was branded as.
It was a role you fell into.
It was a role I fell into. I was branded as that fun football model actor dude who's like the cool guy on campus. Go to Vaughn's football house, it's the best house on campus, right? But I didn't realize how much harm I was doing to the culture by taking part in those activities and creating that kind of atmosphere. So at 21, sitting in the cafeteria, someone came up to me and said something really silly, but they didn't realize I had a transformational shift. My transformational shift happened when I went to the Bahamas, and my aunt said, "You're going to Miles Monroe's church." And I'm like, okay.
Is that 21?
Yeah. So I was in the Bahamas for a couple months. I went to Miles's church, and Miles was teaching on the laws. So you could understand like the actual laws of the Bible, and then what happens when you break those laws. And what he did is he correlated to our laws that we have in our current infrastructure, in our world, in our society. So if you are caught speeding, you'll get a ticket. If you run a red light, you'll get a ticket. If you keep getting tickets, you're gonna get your license suspended. If your license is suspended, you can't drive. So he showed a direct connection to the biblical laws or commandments, right, and our world, so you can best formate an understanding of what happens when you break them and the consequences of breaking them. Epiphany. So I was breaking all this stuff, thus causing all of this to happen. And my life is in this current position because of my defiance of all of this stuff I was told not to do. Time to make a shift and a change. And as I did, a lot of things started to fall into place, and it flowed smoothly. It was like doors kept opening. So someone came to me in the cafeteria and said something silly. I'll never forget the story. And my response to her was so articulate and intelligent that she kind of shuddered and froze and looked at me like I was a complete alien. Because no one had ever seen that intellectual side, because I was always like this guy having fun joking around.
Playing your role.
Playing a role.
But even making a decision at that time, making a decision is I don't want to say it's easy, but it's easier to come to than maintaining a practice. Because it's not the cool thing to do.
Yeah, at the end of the day, for me, I was like, I don't care what people think anymore. I stopped caring what people thought about me because I cared too much about what people thought about me. And what people thought about me started to create who I became. So because they thought I was funny, I would be the funny guy. Because I thought they liked that I dressed in really cool clothes and wore fancy sneakers, and that was something they always commented on, I would then do more of that, right?
So you lose the essence of
but who is that?
Or you're not acting in the essence of who you are.
But who is that person, right? And then entertainment and culture and all of these social implications started to force this type of image on our group, especially the way I grew up in the music I listened to, the movies I watched. If you look at it, whatever's forced and peddled in our communities is what we essentially will become, because entertainment's a form of propaganda in a sense.
Right.
It's a form of coaching and teaching.
Right.
This is who you are. So if you look at the movies and the roles of African Americans during the time in which I grew up, the majority of those movies and roles were either a gangster, a drug dealer, someone who was taking part in a nefarious act, and not really anyone that was in a position of power or leadership. Right. It wasn't until I'd say maybe the past 6 to 8 years that you started to see some of these roles start to come about.
Yeah.
But growing up, that's all I saw.
Well,
yeah.
I want to talk about your family, because we dove right in,
dove
right?
in.
We can come to these decisions ourselves, but in many ways, our family structure houses who we become, and even what we're predispositioned to. You know, whether it is that we're trying to avoid being like them or actually being like them. So I was curious. Take me back to Guyana and tell me about what it was like growing up in Guyana and some of your family values.
Best experience ever.
Of course.
But 8 years of my life was spent in Guyana. So I was born in Georgetown Memorial Hospital, or as I would say back home, Georgetown Memorial Hospital. Georgetown, from Georgetown. I grew up in Kitty, and I spent my summers in either Maikoni or Essequibo. So my dad's side is from Essequibo, my mom's side is from Maikoni. Both are essentially rural areas of Guyana. Essequibo is right by the beach, so that was more like the beach experience. And then Maikoni was more like farmland. My grandfather, he had diamond and gold claims, and actually would be in the, as we call it, the bush, a lot of for the majority of his life, or the interior, which is for Americans, it's the jungle. And my grandma had 14 children. One passed away, and she raised those 14 children, of course, with assistance of the village, as we call it. But she had 14 kids. One died, so 13 kids that she brought up on her own. My mom was one of them, of course, and then all of my aunts, they essentially became part of that mother community for me. So every single one of my mom's brothers and sisters played a role in raising me. I was the most energetic, rambunctious, overly aggressive. I was wild. So growing up in Guyana, I was exposed to everything, from learning how to sew at a young age, learning how to cook food, learning how to climb trees, pick fruits, learning how to plant your own food, learning how to catch your own fish, gut the fish, scale the fish, wash the fish, season the fish, cook the fish by the fire that you built with your own hands. We didn't have this Americanized version of a fishing rod. If I needed a fishing rod, I'd have to go climb a tree, pick the best piece of wood or branch that I found in that tree, snap it off, then go get some twine, cut a little hole with a knife, or any sharp object that we would find inside of the branch, then loop the twine through it, get your fishing hook, loop it to the bottom, and cut a piece of your slipper, make that your float device or your flotation device.
Wow.
Right, this is what I learned growing up, and if you didn't figure this out, you weren't eating that day. So Maikoni, whatever you find in Maikoni is completely different than what you would find in Essequibo. And the experience was a whole nother world. So I got the best of both worlds there, and then the city life was the majority of my time spent was in the city, obviously. I went to private school. I went to the first private school in Guyana called Maison de 12. And I learned a tremendous amount about life and how to navigate the world at that school.
So now I want to ask you, because that foundation, do you think that it impacts all of who you were in Guyana? Did that inform who you are now, and what you brought into your profession? Absolutely.
Guyana, I think that 8 years of life in Guyana is what gave me all the skills necessary to be someone who can just continuously win no matter what adversity shines its face. Because there's no challenge or conflict that's too large. In Guyana, you have to figure it out.
I think just even like as Caribbean people, we are creative in that way. You know, we have to bridge the gaps.
You have to be solution oriented, and then to be able to see all 13 of those children immigrate to the U.S.
All 13.
All of them.
Wow.
Every single last one of them.
Wow.
Yeah, some went back, of course, and still live in Guyana, but all of them they've moved here at some point in their life, and seemingly the majority of them want to go back and finish their older years there, I guess. Yeah. Them living here and coming up to this country without any official job or title, they had to work their way up. Like my mom, for example. My mom, she arrived and she started working in a nursing home, and she would just, regular attendant in a nursing home, just cleaning beds, helping people in the nursing home, and whilst going to school with aspirations to become a registered nurse. So she did that with 2 children on her own, single mom. So I had to learn how to manage the home while she was away, because of course she that wasn't the only job. She actually was working about 4 jobs at one point. She whittled it down to about 3, and then it got to 2. Then she graduated nursing school, and then she just held 1 job. But during that time frame,
setting up the foundation as an immigrant.
Yeah.
What that is like. Yeah.
But to see her grind and persevere and actually be a witness to the process showed me that A, it's possible I can attain this or more, and B, there's no excuse. There's no excuse. What is the excuse?
You just do what you have to do.
You do it and you win.
Yeah. It's actually pretty colorful, a pretty colorful background, and you brought us all the way up to your presence as on the football team as an athlete at Hofstra. But I want you to tell us a little bit now about how you got into this career as hotel manager. One of the things I really admire about Vaughn is his leadership style. We've done a couple of things with Dream Hollywood, in the past season and over the pandemic, and I've come in contact on several occasions with his staff, and I've seen him work, and I think that's one of the things I'm most impressed by you about is his leadership style, and everybody is like, everybody's swaggy. I mean, just in their personality, and you can see he allows people's personalities to come out. So I want to find out, how do you get to this? How do you become this leader? Where did it start?
It's from trial and error in life. Understanding, when I was in that position, how it felt under the type of leadership that I was, subject to, and what pros and cons I took from that experience. So everything in life, I have a first principles perspective, and that's the only way that I can navigate life.
And tell us what that is.
Yeah, so it's about boiling things down to its most elementary form, and then rebuilding it.
So sort of going back to the root.
Yeah, going back to the root of every single process and system, and then rebuilding it from the ground up, right? And it's like reverse engineering in a sense.
So give me an example of what that is like in you applying it to what you do.
In hospitality?
Yeah.
So even the check-in process, right? So I'm in an industry that's been around for quite some time. So over time, it's just been a consistent passing of the same process from generation to generation to generation. And I'd say a very small percentage has taken that time to stop and say, is this process antiquated? Are we able to redefine it? So I looked at that entire process, right? From the pre-arrival, from the moment that any communication arrives in the inbox of the guest, they know they've booked their reservation, all the way until they're finished with the front desk and then they're at their room door. So I redefined that entire process.
So you guys have pivoted. I came with my door key on my phone, guys.
Right. Yeah. I mean, 80% of the guests, and this is data that you can find anywhere online, 80% of guests would rather text than pick up the phone. So you have to listen to your customers. If your customers aren't of the old guard, who enjoyed that in-person connection, then you need to pivot. You need to make an adjustment. But for us, our guests would rather just get their key and go right to their room. So we were able to redefine the process. You get your digital key the moment your room is ready. Even if you haven't arrived to this hotel, we will check you in on the back end of the system and then push a digital key to you. The registration card is completed remotely. You don't need to sign any paper. It saves me on paper and ink.
Oh yeah.
And then they're notified as to when the room is ready. Once the room is ready, we push a digital key to them, and it's right on their phone. They come to the hotel, they go right to the room. They don't stop by the front desk unless they want to. Our system is built and predicated on the new guard because you have to continue to evolve. You have to continue to
and that's kind of what you're known for, because even in your bio that I've read, you're known to revolutionize the guest experience, and I've read about your sneaker program, and I've seen what you've done here with, you know, the guest check-in experiences you just described, and even Alfred.
Yeah, Alfred's the man, our little
Alfred.
robot.
So I want to take it back a little bit, going down this line. Where did you start in this mindset? What was your first position in hospitality?
Yeah. So I'll tell you the funny story. So I graduated college, political science. Didn't want to be a politician. I wanted to just take my own route because being from the Caribbean, you know, you're either a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher. You have a few things you can do, and if you don't do any of those, you failed.
Exactly.
You're getting kicked out the house and carry yourself somewhere else. Figure it out. So I was acting and modeling right out of college, and a couple of my friends said you should just work at a hotel in the interim.
Right.
You know, and I was like, okay. So I took my resume and I walked around the meatpacking district. Actually, I had an interview at the Standard downtown in the meatpacking district in New York. Interview went well. It was for a front desk agent position. I was like, yes, nailed it. And I was like, you know what? Let's just hand these resumes out. I have extra resumes because you always go prepared, multiple resumes just in case. So I went around and I started handing them out to the hotels in the meatpacking district, and I ended up at the Gansevoort meatpacking. And the young lady at the front desk, she looked up and she's like, how can I help you? I was like, oh, I just wanted to drop my resume. I'm just, I don't know if you guys are hiring, but if you are, I'm interested. She looked up and she looked at me and she goes, you wait right there. She called the director of HR immediately. He came upstairs and said, great, yeah, we're hiring for our Park Avenue. So there's a new opening for Gansevoort Park Avenue. So I had an interview with him. I had an interview with actually now the COO of my company that I currently work for. He was the general manager of that property.
Oh, wow.
And my previous general manager that I worked for, my last property, was the hotel manager. And they both interviewed me.
Wow.
Yeah. So I go into this interview and I'm like, yes, sir. Well, I graduated with a political science degree, bachelor's in political science from Hofstra University, student athlete. And yes, I'd love to be a front desk agent. And he goes to the interview. Like, this interview's going well, but you're going to be a Bellman manager in training. And he hired me.
Well, you asked for a job.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It was a level of humility at that point that hit me. And I don't know. I think that was his thought process, because understanding his background, he learned from the ground up. He started to intern from a very young age in hotels, and he started as a bellman, even in the intern process, right? So for him, he had a well-rounded macro and micro overview of the operations as a whole, right? So I can speak to any position in hotels because I've done it on some level. Yeah.
So you started off as a bellman in this place, and you, which under great tutelage, I think, because you were able to now
hands-on.
Yeah, learn all the positions. But how did that progress, that journey?
Yeah, so it was a lot. Well, it was more like a manager in training program. You know, I was in that role as a bellman, but during any downtime, I was allowed to go to the front desk and learn the property operating systems, the property management systems, the building management systems with engineering. I also learned, hot sauce and opera. All the hoteliers out there will understand what I'm talking about. But those are very important systems that are utilized within the day-to-day operations.
Right.
So I would also work. We had a rule where you had to work 1 week straight of overnight shifts. As much as I hated overnight shifts, those were the times in which I learned the most, because there's not much happening at a hotel between certain hours. And you can actually go, and generally your overnight managers.
In the middle of Manhattan?
Yeah. I mean, at Gansevoort, as soon as it hit, especially if it's on a weekday, right? As soon as it hit about 12 midnight or 1 a.m., so you have from 12 to 7 a.m. or from 1 to 7 a.m. to learn. So those were the times I took advantage of the knowledge or expertise from the overnight manager, and I would just pick his brain. And
so you had like a penchant for like learning and growing.
Yeah. Well, that's something that I learned in Guyana, right? You would learn from various individuals within the quote-unquote village. If you want to learn how to make a fishing rod, you go to the guy that was the best at fishing rods and he'd teach you. You want to learn how to catch fish, you go to the guy that's best at catching a fish. You want to learn how to build a house, you go to the guy that's best at building a house. That's the same exact process that I took towards growing within the industry. I would be the kid that did not care to ask the most annoying questions. Because at the end of the day, my intentions are good. I want to get better. I want to improve so that I can thus then improve the operations and make the organization look good. So that was always my mindset, still is to this day.
It sounds like the perfect mix of perspective and just a competitive kind of
I have a problem.
Approach to life.
I have a competition problem. Yeah, I'm pretty competitive.
So then what brought you to your first position where you were like in hospitality, where you're like, yes, I have arrived, I now have the opportunity to really make my name and, apply all of what I've been aspiring to?
I never had that. It's
really?
Weird. Yeah.
Wow, I mean, just throw away the question.
I don't know. No, it's a great question though. It's a great question because a lot of people, they look and they're like, oh, I've made it, I've arrived.
Right.
That, to me, that comes with a sense of complacency.
Right.
So once you've arrived, you've accomplished it.
Right.
Now what? Life it's a continuous learning experience. You have to grow every day, and there is no arrival process. It never ends until you die, right? So that's how I approach it. But I guess an aha moment was when some of the more accomplished individuals within the organization from all the hotels would just come up to me and just sing my praises.
How do you encourage someone who does not yet identify that as natural in themselves to acquire that?
Right. So what I encourage the team to do is to become masters of all things.
Right.
Acquire knowledge across a vast sphere of information. This is the only time in the history of the world that you can learn any subject, any topic, anytime you want. So now more than ever, we should all have the ability to speak across multiple verticals with ease if we took the time to actually acquire that information and study it. It's all there.
So then what kind of qualities would that be in a person? Like
aptitude. I love the Harvard grads. I love Columbia, NYU, UCLA. It's cool. Love it. Those are great schools. But what I love even more is aptitude. IQ is great too, right? But aptitude, I think, is more so important for me as a leader within my organization, because these are people that have the ability to do anything. There is no limit because they're flexible, they're malleable, they come up with creative solutions to problems, they learn things quickly and easily. I like go-getters, people that just do it. And just go out and win. A lot of the times what I find is within certain institutions you're programmed to behave in a certain way, and you're stuck in that mold, that box. So that box you're in limits you from being free in your thought and movement, which hinders your ability to function on a high level within the corporate world.
And to expand or grow.
Absolutely. So those are some key identifying points when I'm reviewing resumes and interviewing people. It's just trying to pick their brain to know who they are. I asked them, what was the last book that you read? Because I want to see where they are in the learning process, in the journey of the learning process. What's the last movie that you watched that lets you into someone's entire soul? It's really interesting, right? What type of music do you listen to? You're building a profile of a person based on these questions that are unorthodox in the interviewing process. Usually interviews are just scripted, but what they're missing are the key intangibles that makes that person a person, and thus what they're going to look like within the organization.
What is one of the major stumbling blocks that you encountered along this path? Because you have this really colorful background and you've always excelled. You describe that pretty well, but along the way, our greatest lessons come from most times our fallbacks or our drawbacks. So what was something you could probably identify?
I think greatest stumbling block was myself.
It's usually how it is.
It really was. It really was myself, and not truly knowing who I was, and having a full awareness of self. Whilst I was navigating my growth period within the organizations that I was a part of, that was the major stumbling, because I didn't truly believe fully in every one of my capabilities. I stopped limiting myself, right, in thought, and then started to believe that anything is attainable, and I can do anything, even if I can't do it.
You're gonna find some information.
But I believe that I can, thus I will move with that belief system embedded within my source code, right? As opposed to, I can't do this, thus I won't move with that mindset. So now I can't acquire the tools I need to complete the task.
But you know, even if you know that that is a mindset that you ought to have, it's not as easy as adopting it in order to take action. Taking action is really challenging.
Yeah.
So then how to someone who's watching, right, and who's inspired by you and your position and where you're at, and sees that there is the ability to achieve these things, but they themselves within don't have that, they don't believe that they can, how do you activate? How do you tell them that?
They need to take a long look in the mirror. Look at self. Really take a look at yourself.
Yeah.
And really try to learn yourself. Who are you? We all have gifts. Every single last human being has a gift or multiple gifts. And we're all intelligent. Don't let anyone tell you that you're not. We are all intelligent. We all have the same brain and the same abilities to learn things. It just depends on how much you want to learn it. You can be as accomplished as anyone else in this world. You can be as intelligent as anyone else in this world. You have gifts just like everyone else in this world. Now just go out and apply that understanding and you can accomplish it. That's the thought process.
I think that is something for many people, it has to be cultivated in them, because
you have to believe in yourself, man.
Yeah, your childhood shapes that. So if you never had anyone take a look at you, then how would you take a look at yourself? But that's why, as you said, self-awareness is so very important. So then now, as a 34-year-old man with this beautiful family, right? Another stereotype broken. I just had to say that.
Statistics, the numbers.
GM. What are some of the important lessons that you teach your kids?
My kids are homeschooled or outschooled.
Right.
It's not like your traditional homeschooling. You know, whatever negative PR went behind homeschooling needs to change, and we'll start it now.
Right.
You know, they're a part of a large community of homeschoolers here in California, and they learn from experts in those fields, similar to the process in which I learned.
Right.
So, for example, my son was in anatomy and physiology class yesterday. In that class, it's being taught by my wife, who's a physician assistant. Right. So she specialized in that field or that subject, so she can teach it. So they go. So whoever is going to teach statistics is a mathematician. Whoever is going to teach, rocket science, someone who probably works for SpaceX. Right. So we go through that process with all of our kids. And my kids are being taught to be solution-oriented problem solvers, entrepreneurs, leaders of industry, and people that fix stuff. Because there's a lot of broken things in the world, and not a lot of people that are attempting to fix it. Gen Z is doing a great job at that, by the way. A lot of people say negative things about the millennials and Gen Z, and I think they're missing what's important to those generations. It's not about making money for them.
They're really conscious.
They are beyond conscious.
What's right and wrong in the world, like what needs fixing.
They're all about fixing things. So that's a process in my home with my kids. So my son and my daughter will come to me and say, "Dad, this is broken. What do I do?" I know the answer, but I won't tell them. I'll say, "I don't know. What should you do?" "Well, I took the screw out, and then I took it with another screw, and I used this screwdriver to put it together, but it still doesn't work. But I was thinking of this process in which I can," and they just run through their entire thought process to me. And I'm like, "Those are great ideas. Go for it, and come back later." They have to solve every problem on their own. Some might be too complex, and that's where I'll step in after they try. I've noticed that there has been a tremendous amount of lack thereof of critical thinkers now due to all of the technology that's been integrated in our society. I want to make sure my kids are not handicapped by all this technology that's been added, and that they can be free thinkers and be able to move and traverse through the world with that mindset of fixing things and moving on to the next problem that needs to be solved.
Congratulations to you on that, just even having that thought process, you know. And I think you're right. It is a balance between having all this information and technology at your fingertips, but then being able to bridge gaps and fill spaces without being reliant on the technology.
Right.
Technology really is just a support for our brains, really, and our functionalities.
Yeah.
So as we're talking about challenges in the world, I wanted to get into your affinity for the charities that you support. I mean, you're a big proponent for feeding the poor and for solving the homeless problem in California specifically. Why are they important to you?
Well, it goes back to that whole thought process of problems in the world need to be fixed. When I arrived to Los Angeles, I had this illusion of grandeur where this is the movies, this is LA, and then I saw, why is that?
Like most of us.
Why is that tent there? What's going on here? Why are there so many people over there? Never saw that, even in New York City. And I was in the meatpacking district when it was the meatpacking district.
Right.
I've never seen anything that is to this level, and it's concerning. I serve on a few boards, so the Hollywood PID, which is the Hollywood Partnership, responsible for development in all things Hollywood, essentially, right, in a nutshell, which would include the homeless challenge or the unhoused challenge. And then with the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, right, all things commerce in Hollywood. But then a derivative of that is the unhoused challenge. And then the Los Angeles Tourism Board, right? Because we want people to come to LA, and we want to make sure that LA it's got the stage face on, right? So that's with those organizations that I work with in the Hollywood Food Coalition, which is a great organization that feeds the homeless and underprivileged families and provides nightly dinners. So working with those organizations to help me fix the problem, or for me to help them fix the problem. I involve my kids too. I bring them in and allow them to just see that, what you're seeing in Santa Clarita, that's not real life for everyone. You have to understand there's hardships out there, and the world is a cold place, and it's not all sunshines and butterflies, and you have to kind of build a tough skin by understanding that there's some real problems out there that need fixing, so they won't be shell-shocked when they enter the real world, quote unquote.
Very true. As we sit here and sirens are going off in the background, that is very true. I love that. Yeah,
so going back to first principles, we need to first address mental health. Right? What is driving people into this position in life? And then you go back to the root of it, you fix the root problem, and you put them in a situation or a location like the Trieste program. It's actually a community. It's actually a community outside of city limits, that with affordable houses that are built or units, and the unhoused, they are provided these units, and someone that is accredited in the field of psychology can come in and give them mental health assistance, or even mental health experts can come in, and anyone in the medical field can come and assist with some of the challenges that they might have medically, and rebuild this person. Get rid of whatever toxic, get rid of whatever toxic habits might have been picked up along the way as a part of that environment, and prepare them to be put back into society, and not do it at any additional cost to them. We need to be like the Good Samaritans, right? We're all here together, we're all sharing this world. It doesn't do anyone any good for you to consume all the resources like a parasite. What does the overall well-being for the globe is if we all work together and help each other, edify each other, build each other up. I'm never about tearing people down. You'll never see that.
What are you doing in your life if you're not assisting someone else, or if you're not impacting the life of someone else positively?
If you're not doing something, then what are you doing? That's one of my mottos, always, right? Like, go do something. There's so much to do. So that's with the Trieste program, which I think is a fantastic idea. And the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce and the Hollywood BID, they're pushing that program. And the mayor's office here in Los Angeles is also very focused on it. And we're hoping to expand it, throughout the entire state of California.
That's amazing.
Have a voice.
So I want to switch gears a little bit. Okay. I've learned so much about you, and I think you're a brilliant mind. But what are one of your quirks? we all have our thing. Like we all have or weird.
Like a weird thing they do?
Yeah.
Everything has to be organized. Everything has to be organized.
Right.
Like when I get home, my watches go next to each other, my AirPods, my chapstick, my wallet. There you go. Everything has to be symmetrical too.
Often your environment is a reflection of your mind and your thoughts. So
even your desktop.
Yeah.
Like your computer desktop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your inbox.
Controlling it.
I got one for you. Inbox management. If you have 4,000 unread emails and I walk past that and I see it, I might faint.
I think you might faint when you look at my phone. It's just
I
like,
just can't.
I listen, there is a method to the madness though, just in my inbox.
I know.
A couple
Everyone does it, it's okay.
1,000 unread.
I did a fun exercise with, at my last property with some of the leaders where, you know, it was like inbox management day, let's go, where are you at? And there was like a sense of pride within the team. I have 1 unread, I have 2 unread, I have 5 in my follow-up, I have 10 unread, but I'm gonna finish this today.
No, as we come to a close, I wanna, do you think is the most Guyanese thing
that I do?
That you kept?
Foods that I like to eat. I still crave like curry chicken and roti. I don't eat meat anymore or poultry or you know, I'm vegan, but I love my curry and roti. That is one of the most Guyanese things that I've kept.
Yeah.
I still have the accent too.
Yeah, you do.
We can put it down anytime we want.
Yes.
But nobody not gonna understand what I'm talking about. That's what it's happening.
Wow.
Yeah.
Listen, the Guyanese accent though is like.
It's an interesting accent, isn't it?
It's
because it depends on what region of Guyana you're from. Because there's people there's people in Georgetown that they just speak in a similar fashion to the way I'm talking to you now.
Right.
But then if you were to go to like Rupununi or, you know, Essequibo or parts of Maikoni or Berbice, the accent can get really deep.
Yeah.
Where you're not gonna understand what that person's saying unless you're from that area.
We kind of have that too. Like in Barbados, our dialect is really strong.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to take a moment. Listen, when we travel the world and we find someone who is from the Caribbean, it's an amazing sense of homecoming in like this
big world.
But
there's someone that's from down the street where I grew up.
Yeah.
Drank the same soda, cream soda with carnation milk.
There you are, Guyanese.
Yes. For sure. Guyana is a remarkable country. It's the only English-speaking country in South America. It's about 700,000 people. The other thing about Guyana too, it has the largest percentage of brain drain. Brain drain.
Yeah.
I just had brain drain. Brain drain in the world.
Yeah.
So you'll find the majority of Guyanese people in this country are in very accomplished positions. Yeah. I'm talking doctors, lawyers, politicians, teachers, surgeons, physicists, across the board. It's shocking. There's a laundry list of people that are in high positions within the world that are born in Guyana. Yeah. So you can also attain it, but you don't necessarily have to leave.
Yeah.
You can stay and build up the country and the economy. I mean, they just found oil off the coast of Guyana. It's a tremendous amount of oil, so Exxon is active there.
No, I think that it is one country. I mean, you know, we grew up in the Caribbean. We know the history of pretty much all the islands, and we've always heard about the wealth of resources that Guyana is and could be. And it just comes down to systems. We need to see ourselves as more than just a place, a paradise, or a place that people come to visit. Like we are a wealth of resources within ourselves as a people. You know, we with academia at the back as our backbone, because you know, and then we all leave and we come and we hold these great big positions out in the great big world. There's a lot of influence that we can have. So I look forward to it, and it's great that we can have conversations like these. And now people know that there's a Guyanese that's the GM of the Dream Hollywood Hotel in the middle of Los Angeles. How fascinating is that?
It's humbling.
You have an incredible story.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing with us.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
This was fun. This was a dream.
It was a dream, guys. It was a dream. See you guys next time. Bye. Love.
Bye.